Hello, students. This is the beginning of week 3, and so I want to introduce the materials that are in the Canvas site and tell you a few things that should be of interest to you. So everybody who took the quiz got a perfect score on it. I realized that I hadn't made the quiz link available, so some of you were able to get to it probably because if you clicked on the link that it was a homework, but the quizzes weren't available in the left-hand navigation. So this is the third way in which I've messed up here. I claimed that I knew about teaching online, and I've thrice made it difficult for you to get to things. So the two of you who didn't yet do the quiz, it's still there and you can do it. Visual communication in the news is this category. There's a module which is underneath the module for the 13 weeks. Maybe it's under the VASML module. But what I've noticed is that the visual communication in the news stories that are there have branched off into 4 categories. And those categories, I'm now reading from the agenda page for this week. Categories are the problems of counterfeit images, hackable political future, and AI cat and mouse. So there are 2 ways in which people with pretty sophisticated technologies could mess with, say, elections. One is they could create a video that captured some person doing something illegal, unethical, immoral, and then they could take the face of some politician and put it on that person and have it be pretty convincing. Once upon a time, this required some very expensive technology. Now, inexpensive technology and just a little practice, and you could make anybody appear to be doing anything. The other one, AI cat and mouse, was an article that was about artificial intelligence creating images of faces that look like real people. And what they will do is they'll generate these faces from real pictures of celebrities that you know and you're familiar with. So then they create a new picture and you look at it and it's like, not only is it totally convincing, you will somehow associate it with some of those aspects of that celebrity if it was someone that you thought was worthy of admiration, etc. The second category in the visual communication, the news links that I have in that module, is the problem of visual surveillance. And so there are 2 categories there. One is you're probably familiar with the fact that Bourbon Street in New Orleans is a street where people go to celebrate Mardi Gras. Throughout the year, hold on a second, I was saying, Bourbon Street is a street where people go to party for Mardi Gras year-round. They'll party on Bourbon Street. Sometimes people have too much to drink. They engage in behaviors that break the law. And so now the police in New Orleans are thinking of putting video cameras all along Bourbon Street. So then the question is, well, what will that do to Bourbon Street? Yes, people might behave better, but they might not be interested in going there if that's a place where they have to behave better, or if they misbehave, that it will be caught on video. So video surveillance is something that is increasingly just becoming a part of our life, and it has consequences. The other one is how do you vote? So it turns out that Google Maps can be used in a way and Google Maps and Google Images can be used in a way to figure out how you voted based on sort of artificial intelligence analysis of images that can be found in your neighborhood. So that's another way where people who want to analyze and possibly influence politics can be using some of these vast data sets of information and then manipulate it in a way that maybe if you would rather it not be done, and not even knowing that it's being done makes it a little problematic. The next news story is about politically incorrect images. So the Norway ski team and the Cleveland Indians and the clothier H&M have all recently sort of been engaged in things that were either trying to correct some negative images or apologize for some embarrassing images. And then the other theme that's developing is the evolution of Facebook. So there have been multiple stories about how Facebook is changing. The most recent one has to do with the fact that Mark Zuckerberg actually said he wants people to use it less, which you would say, okay, that's strange for someone who has a product and they're trying to get people to use it less. But not only did they say they're trying to get people to use it less, they have apparently succeeded in getting people to use it less. And guess what it did to their stock price? Their stock price went up. You say, well, how does that make sense? It makes sense because if people are using it less but enjoying it more, then the advertisers who advertise on Facebook are putting their advertising dollars into a platform that might be more successful. Okay, so those are some visual communication in the news stories that if you're interested in looking at them, just go ahead and read them. They're short articles. They're like the New York Times articles. Your visual affordances of social media logs. A couple people have not yet started, so the 3 people who haven't started. I've updated mine, and I've commented on those people who are updating yours. The goal here then is just for you to pay attention during the semester. At the end of the year, you're just going to have this one short page. It's going to be like a 300-word account where you summarize what it is that you noted, what it is that you came to realize about the visual affordances of your social media by keeping track of it. So if you enter twice a week, that's going to give you something. By the end of it, you're going to have about 25 entries to say, okay, this is what I noticed, this is what I saw. So again, affordances are those things that could be opportunities or threats. So I'm working with Instagram and Facebook. And one of the things I just posted, I realized I enjoy Instagram more than Facebook. And one of the reasons I believe that is the case is because the vast majority of what I see on Instagram is coming from personal friends. Whereas Facebook, once upon a time, the majority might have been from friends. And now it's probably maybe 50-50. And the other half is sponsored stuff, advertising, or things that I don't think my friends would post. And so sometimes I wonder how they get there. So what you want to do is be paying attention to the affordances. Does a certain thing give you the ability to do something and you value that ability? And then is this an ability as a consumer that you get to see things where you're able to see a lot of interesting things that resulted from last night's victory by the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl? Or does it give you the opportunity to show things, to present things? So keep up your VASMLs. Then I want to talk about the nature and power of images, specifically 3 things. So there are pages in the Canvas site, and the first one is, the first one is about Gestalt Psychology. I made a video for that page, so I will not go into that video, but it relates to the fact that your reading for this week, or actually one of your viewings, is a 35-slide PowerPoint, which is from a book called Picture This, How Pictures Work. And so that page is self-explanatory. The next one is about chaos theory, and this relates to the nature and power of images, that the author of that article mentioned chaos theory. And so on the chaos theory page, there's a graphic. And what it is, it's a double compound pendulum. So one of the things about chaos theory is let's say you had a faucet and you turned it and it was just dripping and you're going drip, drip, drip. You could graph the drip of the faucet because you would have one drip every second or every 2 seconds. And if you turned it up, sped it up a little bit, then the graph would change because you would have, more drips per time. But at some point when you turn it up enough, it's not dripping, it's flowing out, and it's getting turbulent, and it seems to have gone from an ordered drip, drip, drip into just this chaotic state. Well, recent sort of mathematicians and physicists have decided that things that appear chaotic are not really chaotic. They're just more complex than we are able to grasp. We can't see the order. There is an order there, and it's hard to see. So the graphic, which is on the chaos theory page, shows how a double compound pendulum starts from working back and forth, and you could graph that, and then it gets this thing that you couldn't graph, and it seems to just make this mess. It's just this jumble. And so that is a visual illustration of chaos theory. And one of the claims that the author makes is that it's quite possible, some psychologists have hypothesized that the brain makes sense of visual stimuli in ways that are consistent with the ordering of chaos theory than the ordering of linear systems. So we've seen some pretty amazing things that are going on from the moment that visual stimuli hit your retina to being able to perceive it as and make sense of it. And so she posits chaos theory as one way to understand it. All right. The next thing has to do with the notion of autism. So the author points to a couple of autistic people, and so there's a page there that lists them. We've got Einstein, we've got Nikola Tesla, we've got Temple Grandin. And so people who are on the autism spectrum often might have what's considered a disability on one hand in their ability to maybe process language or work with social, to see and process social cues. And then they've got an outstanding ability on the other hand, and that outstanding ability is often in the area of images. So all three of those, Einstein, Tesla, and Temple Grandin, are people, highly accomplished people who possibly would have been placed somewhere on the autism spectrum, but what their amazing accomplishments and abilities come from, possibly from their ability to work with images. And then later on in that page, what we've got is a video about Stephen Wiltshire, who's sometimes called the human camera. It's a short video, it's about 5 minutes, but it is quite an amazing video. And it shows someone who is somewhere on the autism spectrum. He would be considered disabled with respect to certain kinds of language processing and social functioning, and yet he can do some things graphically that just defy explanation. It's impossible to imagine how he's able to do that. And then there's another page, and it's about super recognizers. So there are some people. One is a man who actually works with the police in England, and he has this amazing ability to recognize faces. It's almost like he has a whole catalog of people's faces in his head, and that's worth looking at. Okay. Then we get to the readings for next week. So all that stuff about chaos theory. And there's one that's not in there, but it has to do with the business applications of sort of a corporate vision. So I'm going to read to you 2 paragraphs from the reading you had for last week, and it's about the nature and power of images. In business, the idea of belief in a vision has taken on the significance of a megatrend in the last decade, as leaders have come to realize the importance of creating a unified corporate vision to motivate associates and employees. One function of corporate advertising, for example, is to define the corporation image not only to the public, but also to employees themselves, so that they can project this image consistently to consumers. The slogan, "Fly the Friendly Skies of United," not only tells the public that aircraft attendance will be helpful, but also lets all its workers know they will be expected to act in accordance with a certain attitude. Without a common mental image of what the company is all about, employees tend to focus only on their individual job responsibilities. But as business watchers Naisbitt and Aberdeen comment, intellectual strategies alone cannot motivate people to hard work that, quote, only a company with a real mission or sense of purpose that comes out of an intuitive or spiritual dimension will capture people's hearts. And you must have people's hearts to inspire the hard work required to realize a vision. So now we're going from vision as this sort of physiological, psychological process to now it's more metaphorical, but this is someplace where it looms quite large in corporate use of vision. So I'm going to read one more paragraph. This is on pages 90 and 91 of that reading that we had for last week. Among the companies Naisbitt and Aberdeen cite that have successfully instilled a vision in workers and customers are Cray Research, Apple Computer, Control Data, and Federal Express. Cray Research is responsible for the world's most powerful computers. Apple Computer grew from a garage to the major competitor of IBM in personal computers through the idea of ease of use for the average person. Control Data's mission is to address society's major unmet needs as profitable business opportunities, which has rejuvenated business in a variety of inner cities, trained disadvantaged people, and offered computer-based education in prisons. Federal Express began as the vision of a Yale economics student, Fred Smith, of an air parcel service independent of passenger flights. It is worth noting that when Smith first outlined his vision in an economics paper, he received a C grade for it. At the core of it all is the simple realization that the visual image may be the most powerful tool that human beings have to direct the course of their own and others' lives. So this is worth thinking about, because your next project that you're going to do is going to involve a believable, impossible, aspirational vision for yourself. And so I'll give you some details on that. So let's see what else there is too. So all of that section that we just talked about from The Nature and Power of Images relates to sort of the metaphors of mind. If you think the mind is just a computer, then some of this might not make as much sense as if you think of the mind as something more sophisticated and powerful than any computer, and something that may not work on the sort of logico-deductive way that computers work. Okay? Now, so I've received the visual autobiographies of several of you. As of 5 p.m. when I last looked in, there were 4 who had not yet submitted them, and so I will be commenting on them. Now the question is, how do I get you to share your presentation of those autobiographies with the class? So right now, what I'm doing right now is I'm talking at the iSight camera that is built into my Macintosh PowerBook. I have things like a little Kodak camera. I can put a Kodak camera on a tripod, and so basically I could videotape myself doing that. I could do that in a classroom where I'm standing in front of a projection of my visual autobiography. So I'm having you submit the visual autobiographies as assignments to me, so only I see them. But what I want you to do is figure out how you can present it briefly, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, to your classmates, and talk about what you did and why you did it, the design decisions that caused you to use that Prezi, or to use that PowerPoint, or to use that whatever it is, the program that you used to create your visual autobiography, and the pictures that you chose, and the words that you put with the pictures. So each of you probably has a different way to do this. For some of you, it could be quite easy. For some of you, it might be quite challenging. So what I'm probably going to do is write individual emails to you once I have looked at your visual autobiography, and say, how might you do something that then can be shared with the rest of the class. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this introduction for week 3. You have you will get a quiz on the middle of the 3 readings. That quiz will probably be available in Canvas later on this evening. There's some readings, a little more reading this time than in the past, some viewing, and I will put in one discussion question, and the discussion question is going to be about the relationship between reading 1 and reading 3. Reading 1 is the one that there will be a quiz on. So I'm going to wrap this up for now and publish it and post it in Canvas, and then look forward to being back in touch with you soon.